Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day, and our co-sponsor CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online, and our newest co-sponsor Cardamajigs.com, presenting Cubamajigs. These durable, scratch-resistant plastic cases are perfect for cube sideboards with new designs every single Monday. I'm Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
Greetings.
Ruben Bressler.
I am having a great day, and I'm so happy to be with you guys.
Yay!
Oh, okay.
Well, we just got done watching the Pro Tour Finals.
That's right.
Autumn Burchett destroyed it. Amazing play.
Lovely day with Autumn winning, and now I get to hang out with you folks, and later I get to go do D&D things. The sun is shining, the tank is clean, everything's good.
It's a rough life. Somebody's got to live it. That's right. All right. Well, we also begin with our choice of the top comment from last week in a segment we call Honorable Mention, where Ruben will tell us who was the most luxuriant and letting us know what card we did not choose as one of our top 10 soldiers. Ruben?
Well, Allison Williams' comment from YouTube also made my day. It's just a really well-worded, well-thought-out comment. She starts with, "Dang. I was really hoping to see the first soldier of MTG on this list, at least from what I can tell from Gatherer, the only creature currently classified as a soldier from Alpha through Unlimited," which I can confirm, the only soldier printed in Alpha, Beta, Unlimited. And with one of my most favorite and most older players' most hated keywords. Yes, I'm talking Bennish Hero.
Oof.
Also, she has some pretty nice art. Give it up for banding.
Yes.
Yeah, that's an interesting Magic card.
One banding for a white mana. Summon hero.
Uh-huh.
If you're looking for a hero, which it fits this week, by the way.
Holding out for a hero.
That's right. And so well done with the synergy between last week and this week. Definitely deserving of the here honorable mention.
There are no less than, 9 lines of text explaining what banding does?
It's a mess. Just don't.
Just don't.
It becomes a combat step aura, sort of.
See, now we're too deep. We've already went too deep. I'm sorry. We lost a whole bunch of people that just stopped the podcast right there. You say banding,
you have to
things
pause
stop.
the episode to figure out what it does. We understand. We'll be here.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, that's some homework for everybody at home. But Allison, thank you so much for commenting on the video. Please get in touch with us via Reddit moderator.
Snapchat
Reddit is good. Twitter, if I don't have you blocked. Facebook. We're pretty accessible, folks. If you belong to our Discord.
Yep. And if you have any problems, feel free to hit up either of us on Twitter, online. We'll get you sorted. Time to time, things fall through the cracks, or maybe the winner didn't get to hear the episode as soon as they were announced and stuff like that.
Right.
So either way, congratulations, and thanks so much to CoolStuffInc.com for providing a $50 gift certificate to whatever Allison would like to purchase. But this week, we are talking about heroes, the heroes of Magic. There are...
I can be your hero, baby.
Not what I would have picked from the list of karaoke hero songs, but
I don't have enough energy to do Bonnie Tyler, otherwise I would.
okay, that's a good one.
Because you can't give. I was at a drag show last night, and one of the queens started off with Total Eclipse of the Heart, and then she pivoted, and I was like, you better pick up the energy, girl, because you can't half step that song. And then she killed it.
That's the one I would have picked. I also don't think that I can sustain that level of energy required to hold out for a hero until the end of the night. But that's I appreciate the work you put in, because I put in none. So
okay.
There you go. Well, what a top 10 hero is going to be defined by however we want to put the gates around it, just fine. But for me, it was basically sort of the characters in the game, and the ones who either were heroes or lived long enough to see themselves as villains.
Right.
Yeah.
We have a couple of anti-heroes on the list, a couple of people who used to be heroes or became heroes later, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think it also says a lot about us and sort of our particular play types and things that we value. Like, I'm pretty sure that I have a couple, controversial picks here, but, a hero means different things to different people. And I think a hero is something that you don't describe yourself as. I think that's a title that's bestowed upon you. And so I think that there are some people that you might agree are heroes, but it's up for, everybody can, different heroes for different people.
Well, let's go ahead and get started here with my number 10, because it fits that definition pretty well. This was a character that started off as awesome and lauded and terrific, and later became a maniac and slaughtered all sorts of people, and it was awkward.
Yikes.
And yeah, that gets one official yike comes out of that one. But when you have an original card, your first card be this awesome, awe-inspiring thing, and then later, again, homicidal maniac with blood splatters everywhere. You know, that's where you get Avacyn. Avacyn,
Yeah.
Angel of Hope, into Archangel Avacyn, into Avacyn the Purifier. There's a whole arc there. But when she first started, she was basically a god for all intents and purposes.
Absolutely.
People were praying to her, and she locked the demons in the Hell Vault. But by locking the demons in with her, that meant that she wasn't there, which meant people started kind of losing faith because she wasn't there anymore. And then later kind of went nuts, and it was a problem. But when she first got started, Avacyn was absolutely the hero of Innistrad.
Yeah, really, so many layers to that character. You know, this idea of her literally being built, like Soren made her. And so you had sort of this almost Frankenstein element of like, you know, the love that he had for this creation, and then ultimately needing to deal with her when she became twisted. You have her being the one thing that was really keeping Innistrad from falling apart, and Nahiri understanding that if I just get rid of this one thing that's going to prevent me from making my call, I'm going to be able to do what I want to do. And so it would have been very easy to make her very narrow and one-sided, and a lot of layers to this character. And I applaud the decision to make her, you know, the initial big bad of like, you know, oh, Innistrad's falling apart. Who's doing it, Avacyn? It's like, what?
It's like, wait, what?
You immediately want to know, how is this possible? Because it didn't seem like it was.
Yeah.
So devout were the followers of Avacyn that even in her absence, she offered hope. Avacyn, for hundreds, if not thousands of years, locked in the silver monolith of the Hell Vault, behind the Thraben. What was that? It was sort of like an outcropping. But she was very close to my top 10. Absolutely the equivalent of a Deus Ex Machina in Avacyn Restored, rescuing the Gothic horror plane from certain destruction, locking herself into the Hell Vault with Gristlebrand to make sure that Gristlebrand could not wreak havoc on the rest of the plane. Later, of course, becoming a villain in her own story, but certainly the hero of the first trip to Innistrad. Absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, and it's funny because when you look up stuff about sort of magic characters and you kind of learn sort of about their traits or whatever, there's this one thing that says that Avacyn did not like smiling. She had never understood the point of it. And I'm like, what? Was that really part of her mythos? Was not smile? All right.
I can understand that, especially if you are a creation. You know, if that's something you're not really, you know, built to do. I think it makes sense.
But if you're Data from Star Trek, like, you can still be a good person, but maybe you just didn't get the program chip of emotions.
Emotions could lead to being biased. You know,
especially if you're a demigod. Like, it's tough to embrace emotion.
Especially if your whole point is to offer justice. You know, if you have emotion, that means you can be swayed, you can be biased. But by keeping that sort of black and white, good, evil, it makes it easier to do your job.
Yeah, she was incredibly benevolent to all humans. And then killed them all. Okay, cool.
Well,
Ruben,
not all.
What's your number 10? A bunch.
So my number 10 is a character I wanted to give a shout out to, because he had a very short lifespan in Magic. He's still alive theoretically. Actually, we don't know if he's alive or dead, but the few things that we've seen Koth do have been nothing short of heroic. Very little is actually known about Koth, other than he was born in the Volshak Mountains, between two tribes, essentially, two parents from two different tribes, which made him what's called an alloy, and essentially tried his best to rescue the entire plane of Mirrodin from the Phyrexians. He was Mirrodin Pure's best hope. Allowed Elspeth to escape the plane after trying to take down Elishnorn. Was not entirely successful there, but rather than allowing the sacrifice to befall Elspeth, got Elspeth out of there, and stood by the door, essentially, and protected Elspeth from being followed. Now works with Malira and some of the other untouched people from Mirrodin to try to bring it back to its former glory. We'll see what happens, I guess, when we revisit Mirrodin, but Koth, definitely a hero in my book.
Yeah, and it's always super awesome to me that Koth stands for Koth of the Hammer, which stands for Koth, which stands for Koth of the Hammer. So that's kind of fun. But yeah, essentially this is one of those like I want to know more. I like the Mono Red Planeswalker. I think that's really interesting. Let's make some more Mono Red Planeswalkers that have really neat abilities. This was amazing in the format. Unfortunately, kind of got took over by Stoneforge Mystic or whatever. But it had its time. There was a moment there where Koth decks were
for sure
like rocking and rolling, and it was a lot of fun.
Really.
Rocking and rolling. Well done.
Thank you. All I know is it appears that they haven't killed him off. That he's still alive. He made it away from some bomb they were setting off at the end of New Phyrexia, and so I'm ready to see him again. I think great. Aaron, what's number 10?
My number 10 comes to us from the plane of Fiora, which is where conspiracy takes place. I love Fiora. I'm not normally a drafter. I don't play a lot of limited, but I will draft the crap out of some conspiracy. I feel like that plane is full of so many story threads that never seem to be fully tied up in. And so it's very quickly turning into another Ravnica for me, another plane that I'd be perfectly fine just staying in. You have characters like Kaya and Queen Marchesa and Brago and Grenzo, and my number 10, who is Adriana Valor. So Adriana was the captain of the guard under King Brago. She took his sword after Kaya killed him and quit her job on the day that Marchesa was coronated. She's like, I'm not doing this. I'm just not. Foregoing loyalty. Typically when you think of a monarchy, the staff is loyal to whoever wears that crown. You're not loyal to a specific prince or a king or a queen. If your job is to protect the king, you protect whoever wears that crown. And so she chose loyalty to her city over loyalty to a person. And she was so passionate about Queen Marchesa not ruling that she was like, I'm out. And so she decided to start trying to work on overthrowing Marchesa. She wanted to build a republic with Selvala as the new leader, which I think is awesome. And so she built this rebellion, and I thought that was a really great thing to do, a very heroic thing to do, putting loyalty to your city and your people above a post.
Wow. Yeah, she really did just up and quit her job after the
the day.
What a great little. That's a nice one. That one wasn't even on my radar, but I love it.
Yeah. Apparently there was a story written by Allison Lures. Remember when we could actually call them out and say they did a good job?
Yeah.
Before Allison made the others feel bad because their stories were so much better. Okay.
Oh no, right? The egos got involved, y'all. Now we have to thank the large corporate entity for providing the words that we like. Yeah. But either way, there's a really cool story called Tyrants that kind of goes over all of this. Which is really neat. So
would really be a cool plane to visit conspiracy is cool and all, but I would like to see the full set treatment and get that kind of attention and clout the whole way through.
And also it's a good place for wizards. You really feel like when you see the cards that come out of conspiracy sets, you see wizards really letting their hair down. You see cards and conspiracies where it's like, why can't we have this in normal sets? So not only is it a great flavorful plane to be a part of, but you really do get to see a different side of wizards in terms of them just not holding back.
Yeah.
All right, let's go over here to number 9. Ruben, what's your number 9?
So my number 9 brings us back to the invasion. And by the invasion, I mean the capital I, the actual time that all of the Phyrexians came to take over Dominaria. And the 9 Titans were the ones who came together in order to prevent that from happening. So my number 9 is the 9 Titans, who are Bolivar, Daria, Freyalise, Commodore Guff, Christina of the Woods, Taser of Rabia, Tevesh Sot, a little bit of an anti-hero there, Urza, who we might talk about, a little bit of an anti-hero there as well, and of course, Lord Windgrave.
Old school.
Real old school story. Obviously, the Phyrexians are a plague upon the multiverse, and when we talk about villains, I'm sure they'll be high up on the list. Initially, Teferi and Parcher came together to build the 9 Titans. Teferi decided that he was like, nope, can't do it, and then sort of vamped out with his couple of planes. And then the rest of the Avengers-style team-up came together to try their best to protect Dominaria from the Phyrexians, and it kind of worked. The Phyrexian plague was averted. Orym found a cure for the plague eventually. This is, of course, when Hana, ship's navigator, died, was killed by the plague. And yeah, the Nine Titans did a whole lot as part of the coalition to bring the end of that invasion.
Interesting. Yeah, that's one of the things I didn't really know. Plus
Now,
that's
is this the same coalition behind Coalition Relic?
Yes, Coalition Relic, Coalition Victory.
Okay.
There's I forget what the card's called, but there's a two colorless and a white enchantment that says if you have permanents of all 5 colors and each basic land type, you can't be dealt damage, I think is what it's called.
Are you sure these 9 Titans had something to do with that?
Yeah, the Nine Titans were they were a group of planeswalkers that came together in order to help fight against.
I think that's a different coalition.
Right. I think the Nine Titans was about Phyrexia and fighting the Phyrexians and Urza leading them.
Yeah, the Phyrexian invasion.
Right.
Urza brings together the Nine Titans.
Right, but I'm not sure. Okay, it's fine. I don't know.
You're right. Yeah, so I'm looking it up here. Yeah, you're correct. The coalition was a name given to the unified forces of Dominaria that resisted the Phyrexian invasion.
It was part of the coalition. I wasn't saying that it was the coalition.
Yeah, it was started by Urza. So you mentioned, that team, and then eventually it turned into the crew of the Weatherlight, which lets you coalition victory, where you win the game if you control a land of each type and a creature of each color.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole coalition ultimately became all of the powers, including the Weatherlight and the people of Shiv.
Yeah, those were only the first members that Ruben. So Ruben went all the way back, which is great.
Okay, then. Fantastic. Aaron, what's your number 9?
So my number 9 started out as a bit of an antagonist, not necessarily a villain, but with a very grim purpose that could be argued as being not good. As the Amonkhet storyline played out, we discovered that this character was one of many that had been manipulated. Their original purpose was to be about compassion and inspiration, and somehow they'd been twisted into being this kind of gatekeeper responsible for killing people who passed the trials that Bolas had set out, and in the end ended up being kind of the sole survivor of the whole thing. My number 9 is Hazaret. So Hazaret started off as the god of zeal. She was responsible for the final trial, slaughters the winner with her spear, which rewards them with the god Pharaoh's presence. So if you pass the trial, Hazaret would kill you. You would go on to die, and then you would probably be brought back as one of the Lazatep zombies that Bolas was making. And then when it was discovered that that wasn't who she was at all, that Bolas twisted her, and when the hour of devastation came, she ended up fighting to protect the people of Noctimoon. And then Bantu revealed the whole scheme to her. And then after everything went down, she started hiding people along with Samet, and ended up being known as Hazaret, the god survivor and the mother of mortals on Amonkhet. So really great arc there of her taking on a very protective role after a very brutal role. And who would have thought that Hazaret would be the sole survivor and the one to really dedicate herself to protecting these people that had been manipulated and ravaged. And I really I was sad to see the plane get destroyed, but I was pleased to see the way that her story went.
I mean, looking back, I really appreciate the sort of the storytelling of, you have this god thing on your plane, you just kind of assume this isn't a bad guy, this is the person that they're praying to and that they want to be a part of and whatever, and then it's like, oh god, like you literally help kind of make this person into and have the army that they wanted, and then let's try to fix it, and then they're trying to smuggle people away and almost got killed by the Scorpion God, and like then teamed up with Samud. Like it was really sweet actually looking back on it.
It's very dark too. We talked a little bit about Avacyn and sort of the crisis of faith that came around from her being bad, but for the most part, the structure remained pure. Like, Avacyn's belief system remained in place. This entire structure was a lie, and so can you imagine what that's like on a mass societal scale to have your entire belief system? None of that was true. That's catastrophic. And so in the middle of that crisis of faith, your world is literally falling apart. Like you got bugs coming out and a scorpion stabbing snakes. And so to have that sort of emotional crisis on top of your world physically falling apart was a level of destruction that we've never seen before. And we've seen a lot of planes get wrecked by wizards, but to have Hazaret of all people be sort of the shining light of like, come on, y'all, it felt good to know there was somebody on their side and that it was her.
Yeah.
War never changes.
Yeah.
It's true. My number 9 is a favorite of mine. Gotten a few cards. She is really, really interesting. And I'm excited to see her come back one more time. Hopefully, she'll show up in War of the Spark. I guess we'll see. But as many may or may not know, my favorite plane is Kamogawa. And there's a Kamogawa planeswalker. Her name is Tamio.
Yeah.
And she's awesome. Like, how awesome? You ever locked like a interstellar being into a moon?
Right.
She's done that. That's just like a Tuesday,
well,
all right?
She's a moon folk. So if you need moon related activities, if you need a loony, boy, let me tell you.
I think these days she's officially like basically sort of like a storyteller. She likes to collect stories. That's like her thing. That's how she does her magic through these things, that she keeps them. She apparently has founded a small informal story circle that exchanges stories between Narset, Elspeth, and Ajani. Well, no longer Elspeth. Spoiler alert. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's really neat. And so, yeah, but Tamio itself, her look, I think, is really interesting. Of course, Kamogawa, I love the theme and the look and whatnot. But the idea, again, that she has these stories, she gets all the multiverse, that's really neat.
Yeah.
Tamio also redefining what it means to be a hero. You know, when we think of heroes, we think of armor and battle and valiancy. And, you know, Tamio really being a hero in terms of her intellect. You know, she probably can't hold her own in combat. You know, like, you're not going to find her like blood drenched with, you know, whatever. But her intellect and her strategy and the way that she's able to think so far ahead and to piece these clues together, you know, to be able to determine what's going on Innistrad, you know, really redefines that. And so there's just no one right way to be a hero.
Yeah. It's just, to me, it's like, you know, there's explosions and all this crazy stuff. And to me, I was like, okay, seriously, I got all this down. This is incredible. Wow.
Information is what you need. Sometimes all you need is to know the facts. You need a field researcher. And Tamio really did that.
Very nice. All right. Let's move on here to number 8. Ruben, what's your number 8?
My number 8 is a massive character who was at the what I don't think was originally one of the 9 Titans, maybe was, but then had a second act in which she became a hero yet again. Among spells that have ever been cast that are the most powerful, that are the most ubiquitous of a world, certainly Urza's Ruinous Blast that ushered in the Ice Age was one of them. But Freyalise casting the World spell to end the Ice Age was another huge turning point. My number 8 is Freyalise, who now has her own card as well. Freyalise fought at the Battle of Koilos, protected the Skyshroud Forest more than once from the Wrathi Overlay and from other oncomers. Survived the Phyrexian invasion, one of only, I think, 4 to do so, or maybe it was even like 2. And then she erected the Martyr's Tomb, which is still a place that you can go visit to commemorate the 9 Titans. And then later helped during the events of Time Spiral to help prevent Skyshroud from being overcome yet again, sacrificing herself this time to seal the rift. Just a hugely relevant character over the history of Dominaria and the multiverse.
Because I don't have a lot to add to more or less what you said, I'm going to tell them what the Planeswalker does.
Great.
From Commander 2014, she's a 5-mana Planeswalker, 2 green, 3 generic mana for a 3 loyalty mythic Planeswalker Freyalise. She has +2 to create a Llanowar elf, basically.
Yep.
A 1/1 elf with tap, add a green. -2, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Or -6, draw a card for each green creature you control, and she can be your commander.
Yeah, this is another one of those characters that we had originally seen in flavor text for a really, really long time. And, you know, slowly but surely, one of the nice things about the, you know, the sets like Commander and Conspiracy is they give us an opportunity to finally meet these characters. Lord Windgrace is another one that we had only seen in like the flavor text of Panther Warriors. And so, you know, the enfranchised Vorthoses are going to know these names. But for the rest of us, you know, we don't know who they are. And so it's so nice to see, oh, that's what Lord Windgrace does. That's what Freyalise does. And so I love that they're giving us more of a glimpse of these characters that are long gone, or so we think. Get a chance to play with them. I think that's stellar.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Aaron, and of course, that is the story of that is told in the saga, The Song of Freyalise as well.
Absolutely.
There you go. Aaron, what's your number 8?
So my number 8 is a character from Innistrad, and when we found out that we were going back to Innistrad, whenever you're going back to a plane, it's always neat to see which characters become major players. Are we going to see Olivia? Are we going to see Saint Traft? What are we going to see? And so we got to go back, and we found out that eventually the flights were still around. So you had the flight of Gold Knight, which belonged to Gisela. You had the flight of Alabaster, which belonged to Bruna, and then you had the flight of Herons, which belonged to Sigarda. This time around, however, Gisela and Bruna had been corrupted by Emrakul. And so at one point, they ended up confronting Sigarda, and they were like, hey, girl, we're onto something really good. You want to come join us? And Sigarda's like, no. And so Sigarda then had to fight her sisters, which is huge. And so because of that, Sigarda is my number 8.
Nice.
And so Bruna and Gisela eventually merged to become Bracella. Sigarda having to deal with that of like, wow, my sisters I have to fight them now. I can join them or I can choose not to. But Sigarda stayed the course. She ended up working with Thalia. Thalia partnered with Saint Traft, like hello. And then together they ended up taking them down. And so Sigarda, as we know, is now the sole angel. And just sort of her loyalty to her faith and to herself and to her people. If you would have said that Sigarda was going to be one of the lone heroes, I probably wouldn't have believed you. But just showing incredible, poise in the face of very strange circumstances.
Yeah, it's like, imagine you're at Thanksgiving, right? And your brothers and sisters over there, and they've become an otherworldly, completely crazy with like 8 arms and legs and wings, and you have to go slay them. That's family get together right there.
And she didn't immediately come to that too. Like initially she was pretty bummed, she was very down on herself. She was distraught, but then she was like,
right.
All right, y'all, we're doing this. And so I think that's great and very heroic.
Sigarda already had to deal with the banishment of one sister, the missing fourth of the multicolored angels that has yet to be named in Innistrad as of yet.
Story thread,
which is a huge story. Absolutely, I would love to see that one picked up when we inevitably return to Innistrad. What would that be? Part 3.
3. Yeah.
The return to the shadows beneath the shadows of Innistrad.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, absolutely, being a shining beacon of hope. Even in the face of Avacyn turning, Sigarda was definitely a hero.
There's a whole sort of story element that you can use, and this happens a lot in movies, where they will reference something and they'll never talk about it ever again. But it will be something that's in their past. And if you go back to, and for Star Wars is a good example, because at one point Obi-Wan mentions the Clone Wars, and they never talk about it again. And it was so cool to be like, wow, what were the Clone Wars? Let's write books about what the clones were. And then they made some movies, and we're like, oh God, did you really have to tell us what the Clone Wars was?
The TV series were dope. The animated series were amazing.
Yeah, don't check out the movie. Not that first trilogy, man.
Well, just because you're old. For a bunch of children who are my age and younger, those movies were hugely relevant to growing up. And so people who are, millennials and zennials or whatever they're called, love those movies now.
Zennials, y'all. Zennials. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, Sigarda's sweet. Again, I like the idea of there's like the fourth sister. We've never met her. I wonder what she looks like. Why didn't she go and destroy the weird abomination that was sisters? I don't know. Also, the symbolism of Sigarda being the host of herons, and the heron in the moon. The moon of over Innistrad has the symbols of the comets that have hit the surface of the moon sort of make out this heron type shape. Mm-hmm. And that ending up being the story thread that leads to the Eldrazi menace being trapped in the moon. Another great callback. Yeah, absolutely terrific. So my number 8, there's not a ton of information about this character because we've gotten this character fairly recently, but there is no doubt that we went from 0 to we love this thing more than we could possibly explain when it comes to Slimefoot, the stowaway.
Sure.
We just love this little squiggly, squishy, probably smells bad, we don't talk about it type of little dude. And came out in Dominaria. Was just a small spore that was stuck on the hull of Weatherlight when they decided to rebuild it from the ground up. And lately became a mascot and a deck swab, rather. Also played a pivotal role in procuring the help of Muldrotha, because
that's right.
Slimefoot and Muldrotha get on the same element, or whatever. And steering the ship during the attack by Yargle. Yargle almost killed everybody. And Slimefoot's driving.
If you don't speak Primordial, boy, it sure does help when your unofficial mascot and deck swab does it.
Woo woo.
Yeah, Slimefoot's delightful. Shout out to the Stibbs who played Slimefoot in my D&D game and did some key damage to Garna in the final fight.
Yeah, this was a really exciting character, and there was so much to be excited about when it came to Dominaria. You know, you had Joyra and Teferi and the hint of a new Capuchin, and then someone from the Sisei line, and the Weatherlight's back. What are people excited about? A 9/3 frog and a sentient shroom. Like,
that's exactly right.
Wizards could have predicted that. You know, I think Wizards was like, oh, we know it. They're gonna love these things. And somebody had shared a Family Guy meme of like this room full of people, and the announcer's like, you know, Joyra, and chat's like, or the audience like this. And then they're like, Slimefoot, and then everybody gets up and cheers. And it was just a beloved character right out of the gate that I don't think anybody could have seen coming. People wanted to know, what is this thing? How does it talk? What does it do? Are there motives there? It was stuck to the hull. How does that happen? And they just did a really good job of making you want to know immediately what this character was.
And just a really lovely story that the Slimefoot introductory story felt. It was just fun, and it was interesting, and sort of just like waking up and not realizing what they are, and self-discovery of finding themselves inside the hull of this ship and meeting these people and protecting its little sapperling kids, mitosis things, and yeah, it was just a really, really great character.
And it says something about Joyra that she didn't just eradicate it. We're like, you know, if anybody else would have been like, oh, there's something on my ship.
Infestation,
Joyra's like, I'm gonna see
the barnacles.
Yeah.
Right, set it on fire, please. Here's a giant bottle of bleach. Go ahead and toss that on there. But no, we foster it, and it's now our favorite character.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move in here to number 7. Ruben, what's your number 7?
You thought I was kicking it old school before. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go back to what's probably the worst set, but like one of the best worlds that I've ever seen. We're going back to Homelands and Olgrotha. The plane of Olgrotha is, first of all, I wish we could go back to Olgrotha because it is fascinating and interesting. And there's so many open threads still there with the Castle Sengir and Sarah and Autumn Willow and so many interesting things happening. But another one of the most powerful spells that have ever been cast was cast by a planeswalker named Feroz. Feroz cast Feroz's Ban.
How do you spell that again?
Feroz.
Okay, thank you.
Feroz was a planeswalker of unknown origin, and again, a wanderer, a troubadour, a bit of a storyteller. Eventually came to Olgrotha and fell in love with Sarah, another planeswalker, and they married and kept Sengir at bay for a long time. When you've got that Feroz-Sarah superhero team up, you definitely want to be power couple. You don't want to fight against that too much. Founded the Wizard School, started training the Beastmasters, which is essentially like a druid, wild shape, turn into animals kind of situation. And then summoned the Feroz's Ban to protect the plane from planeswalkers. Similar to what had been done to Ixalan many, many, many years later, or what accidentally happened to Ravnica. But Feroz manifested it out of pure intention with his planeswalker power. Really fascinating character, just cares about other people and protecting what he loves.
Yeah, I mean, that was basically the Immortal Sun before the Immortal Sun was the Immortal Sun. Also, it just cracks me up how quickly, it cracks me up how quickly the story for this guy just ends. Yeah. It's like, and he died in a lab accident while studying a fire elemental trapped in ice. The end. Like,
well, you know, that's going to happen if you have a wizard school every once in a while.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. But the idea that, fell in love with Sarah, they made part of the comic books. They made comic books about Homelands. And that's basically the only images that we have of Feroz is him with Sarah at the time. But it's still neat. Again, I was just like, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's interesting. That's really weird. And he died. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's what happens to the old planeswalkers. They just go away.
Yep.
Aaron, what's number 7?
Vampires have been in the Magic storyline for years and years, and kudos to Wizards for finding new ways to really introduce them and to do them, if you will. On Zendikar, the vampires were actually made by Ulamog. There's a really big story there about how they came to be, and they ended up leading to the Blood Chiefs, which is what we know them as currently. So when the Eldrazi were free, there was a subsection of the vampire population that wanted to serve them, that wanted to be a part of that really believed in their origins and their ties to that. And then there was a section that was like, what are you doing? Like, we have everything. Why would you do this? And so it led to a very bitter civil war, which leads to my number 7, which is Drana. So Drana was on the side that did not want to go back to the Eldrazi. You know, she didn't understand why you do such a thing. She understood how dangerous it was. She was also a member of one of the wealthiest and most powerful families, which was the Calastria. And so you had Drana on the one side, and then you had Kalidas on the other hand, who belonged to one of the poorer families, the Get. And so Kalidas was all on board, even going so far as to just have an Eldrazi just chilling on him. Like that little bone mask you see, that's in his head, like that's him. And so really interesting take on civil war, the idea of the poor versus the rich and the sort of vampire aristocracy. You know, we're used to sort of these decadent takes on vampires from places like Innistrad. You really don't get to see conflict like this, where it's not all pretty. And, you know, vampires are supposed to be sort of these independent creatures. Well, you know, it's my understanding that Kalidas' side was very happy to just turn themselves over and be like, yes, please. And so a lot of really neat takes on vampires, and Drana ultimately uniting with Tazri to destroy the Eldrazi and free the vampires.
Also, that card is stupid and limited. Drana Calastria Bloodchief was the most stupidly overpowered card. Oh my god!
Version, there was so much hype around that new version. She had a little bit of fun in Abzan aggro for like a second, but it never really took off. But I just love the character. I love what she stood for, and it was just a really neat take on, you know, the trope of the ever partying vampire. Well, no, these vampires really got kind of gritty with it.
Quote, if our former masters would have us kneel again, they shall feel our defiance slashed across their membranes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's better than just saying F you. I just want you to know that. It's a really classy way. It's classy. Okay. They're keeping it classy.
Remember that the next time you're putting those to 4, be like, if you're going to lose this, I'm going to slit your membranes.
Slitting membranes 2020. All right. Well, my next one is a super interesting character, been around for a little while now, and has had some really good versions printed of themselves, and some really terrible versions printed of themselves. So that's how many Planeswalker cards this particular Planeswalker has. It's a character that started out on one plane and then screwed up and ran off, and then kind of got wrapped into adventures with Chandra, and later kind of ran off from that, and later became a hero, someone describe an ally of Zendikar. And this would be Gideon Chura, who originally started as Kithion on Theros. And he basically thought he was the hot stuff, and then tried to kill a god. And the god was like, plink away with your little sword or whatever, and like killed all of his friends. And he was like, oh, and he just walked out of there because, I don't know,
as you do,
shame, you know, amongst other, you know, emotions you're feeling.
Come at the king, you best not miss.
And he missed. So and again, if you read through the story, there's just a whole lot of twists and turns. Gideon Drew himself as cards was always really interesting to me. As characters was great. I wish they kind of hadn't given him Ally of Zendikar, because that card I think was probably too good for what it was at the time. But again, if you're going to like a character and enjoy sort of how Gideon has an arc and how he's learned how to, you know, sort of try to stand up for more or less what's right. What happened essentially, based on what I can figure here, is that he essentially found Chandra and got talking to Chandra, and then Chandra found out that Gideon was working on from the White Order or whatever, and this was the same group that killed her parents. And so she's like, you need to recognize, like, you're not working for the right team here. This is bad. And I don't care who you are. I will kill you if you're working for so-and-so.
Yeah, I mean, a very important moment from Gideon is the card Tragic Arrogance. You know, we talk about, you know, we said earlier in the show, what kind of hero are you? What kind of heroes are we talking about? Gideon being a really good example of sort of the blind hero, not literally, but just, you know, running in and trying to save the day, but not thinking of other people and not bothering to size up who you're going after, really questioning himself on Amonkhet too. He was somebody that believed in a god, and here's a system of gods. And from the jump, he's having to, deal with the fact that this may not be as it appears to be, but he wants to give them the benefit of the doubt. He believes in that system. And you've seen that arc, and then you have him even considering picking up the Black Blade,
he's got the Black Blade.
Right. But, you have him kind of again saying, is my faith enough? Is what I bring to the table enough? Or do I need to consider other things? And so I like that they're giving him a bit of darkness, because for a while there, I personally didn't, have much going for him and didn't feel much of a connection to him. But I am really interested to see where he goes from here. Maybe
has a really interesting point in his arc right now with the Black Blade in particular, after the events of Dominaria and taking up this extremely powerful, perhaps more powerful than him, weapon of great evil. It's a case of the unstoppable force of Gideon's sense of purpose and capital G good versus the immovable object of this millennia-old, unfathomably ancient Black Blade that I did an MTG 101 on the lore of. You can go check that out some other time.
Look at that plug.
There we go.
You're welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, Gideon is a fascinating character, right? I mean, it took a while, but
it took a while.
Interesting spots in development right now.
Yeah, it got really interesting, but and I think you'll like this, Aaron. As for trivia on Gideon, he is affectionately called Beef Slab by Liliana Vess.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I remember that story.
I love it.
So we'll all get our beef slabs.
Beef slab.
Beef slabs for everybody. All right, let's move on here to number 6. Ruben, what's your number 6?
My number 6 is a character that has had many situations that we can talk about them being a hero. Showing up on a brand new plane and bringing their expertise in fighting to that plane. Being able to, taking part in the events of Alara and reunifying Alara back together. That was a huge formative moment in their life. Encountering Koth, as I had mentioned before, on the world of Mirrodin. But the one I want to focus on is Elspeth Tyrell's feature turn as the main character in the Theriad during her time on the Theros plane.
Oof.
Really just, central in the entire time, although the Theriad sort of buried the lead in the initial release of Theros, where we had these flavor texts on things like Traveling Storyteller and on the Vanilla Minotaur that I'm forgetting, the 2-3 Minotaur, that were excerpts from the Theriad where we didn't know the hero's name. And then Born of the Gods and Journey into the Nyx come out, and it turns out it's Elspeth. Elspeth had extremely central roles to play alongside a Johnny eventually when she entered Nyx in an attempt to end Xenagos. And of course, the crazy twist ending that occurred. Spoiler alert, turns out Heliod, the mono-white god, not so great. And yeah, you can check out the art for Deicide, for example, as the main crux point, being able to take down this chaotic, unleashed usurper god. Just a really fascinating story arc. And the way that death works on Theros might not be the end of the story of Elspeth.
Another neat take on a hero, somebody who didn't have a very easy life and was really dealing with kind of the trauma of that. Somebody trying to run away from her problems, not tying up loose ends, and then finally getting to a situation where she needed to deal with her stuff, quite honestly. And so Theros was a really great moment for Elsbeth in terms of taking responsibility, closing up, gaining closure on certain things, and finally letting somebody in, getting closer to Daxos. And then, the brutality of that, where she was manipulated into killing him. And then, Daxos striking a deal to get out of the underworld only for her to get killed by Heliod and put into the underworld. So, it was unfortunate that she died, but when you look at the storyline, I don't want to say that there was nowhere else it could have gone, but it didn't completely come out of nowhere. You really did get the feeling that she had done as much as she could do, or where else could you really have taken that character? You had this hero finally standing their ground, realizing that you can't run from everything, and they did her a little dirty, but at the same time, there was some finality there. I'd like to see her come back. Obviously, I love dead things. And so if we do go back to Theros, I would not be unhappy to see that.
Well,
Absolutely.
I think it's definitely a win at this point as to when we come back to Theros.
Mhm.
But as for the end of her life, I think it's also interesting to look at the very beginning that you had mentioned there. She was born on an unknown plane dominated by Phyrexians, Phyrexians rather. And let's note here, that's to me is really interesting because it says there's different planes that have Phyrexians on them, not just New Phyrexia, not just Mirrodin, not just where in the little pocket of Dominaria where they had, like, Phyrexians could be all over the place.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen her get a happy ending. Like I said, I think there definitely was I think this was a good moment to end her story. I just don't think her end needs to be so brutal where it's like, why can't you give her like a dude and some kids? Like, come on. Like,
I don't think we've seen the last of Elspeth personally.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, again, she's in this prison and she was tortured, and then like her dark warden came for her, and I'm like, my God, this is dark, y'all.
Yeah. Rough start, and then Planeswalked to Bant, became a knight, and the rest, as they say, is history.
That's right. All right. Aaron, what is your number 6?
My number 6 is probably going to be my most controversial entry, but I'm going to go for it. So we were introduced to our number 6 back in Return to Ravnica. She started out as being just a prisoner in the Azorius prisons. We had never really seen a Gorgon before, so this was a really, really big deal. She kind of had a reputation as being a bit of an assassin, a bit of a standalone character. And over the last year or so, we've really seen a colossal amount of growth for this character, and we really haven't seen everything that she can do. My number 6 is Vraska. So Vraska started off as being an assassin, being a mercenary, very quickly realizing that the Golgari were not as unified, not as better than everybody as they would like to think. They sort of live in the sewers. They kind of have that Danny DeVito penguin approach of like, we're better than all you city dwellers, when they're really not. It's really fractured in terms of the crawl, in terms of the elves, in terms of whatever. And so she really wanted to just find a way to bring these people together. She hooks up with Bolus. Bolus says, hey, girl, I'm going to give you a compass, teach you how to swim a boat. You go do this thing. She does. And then she finds a new cause for herself as a pirate. She runs into Jace, who is now amnesic, decides not to kill him because she realizes he has no idea who she is. And they form this friendship. You really see this level of depth with a character that we didn't think it was possible to develop in. And Vraska surprisingly ends up being a good person. But they develop this plan. They realize what Bolus is up to, but Jace realizes that he can't let Bolus find out that she knows these things. And so he does this mind wipe. There's this safety valve there where at the right time, the dam's going to break and she will eventually be a big part of Bolus's downfall. And so we've seen this really great arc with this character, this potential locked away in her brain. We are coming up on this huge war on Ravnica. She does appear to be firmly in Bolus's camp, but we all know that at the right moment. And so I'm so excited to see what she does. I'm really excited to see Ixalan Vraska come back. And I wasn't initially on board with this development, but I really, really like it. And I think that Vraska is going to turn into a really big hero in the upcoming set.
Yeah, basically she tried to make Jace her slave, for lack of a better explanation. And then later, they're not romantically involved, y'all. I know you want it. I know you want.
And I don't think they have to be.
Like, technically, they
have a great friendship, and both of them realized that they had both done kind of screwed up things, and just sort of the realization. And I love it now. I don't
necessarily ship it, but on Ixalan, I'll pirate ship it. Now, I like this pick. I think that, especially in recent events, the most recent trip back to Ravnica as the guild leader, where she is definitely a champion of the people, being the first guild master of the Golgari to really embrace the crawl, really to embrace any race that is sentient that isn't either a Gorgon or an elf, since that's always been sort of the Jets and Sharks situation with the Golgari. They've swapped off guild leaders of those two races, and to hell with everybody else. Vraska embracing the crawl, embracing the erstwhile, who were obviously a forgotten zombie group, essentially, and sort of becoming a champion of the people in that way, really embracing the role of Golgari Queen. And of course, on Ixalan, as the captain of the belligerent, was set up to be a villain. Like, there is no way you go to Bolas's meditation plane, get told what to do by Bolas, then come out of that story a hero. Like, there's the odds are against you, and she found a way. So I like the pick.
Yeah, she's now it's friendos with Jace. Best friendos.
But she doesn't know. She doesn't know she's friendos with Jace.
But she was, and she's gonna be.
Yeah, when they open that can of worms, boy, that should be interesting.
Yeah. And in the meantime, she had to go kill Gerard. So
Well, yeah.
It's how it
Gotta do
breaks.
what you
He
gotta
had
do.
it coming.
Gotta
It's good for us.
do
We'll
what you
chuck on
gotta
the
do.
challenges.
Well, my next pick here for number 6. This is one of the original 5. This was one of the characters we got to know pretty early. This was a character that I really enjoyed. It was great to see so much Pro Tour success with this card, which was great. Because as time has gone on, they've really filled out this lore of this character about more and more and more. This character is about everybody coming together and helping out and striving for a goal. Because a Johnny Goldmane, that's what he wants to do. He's there to lead the people. And even when he gets his eye scratched out, it's fine because he's there with, and he was fighting with his brother and didn't, his brother got killed. Is that right?
Yeah.
Brother got killed and Johnny lost his eye at the same time, as far as I think that's how it works. Yeah.
Ouch. Yeah. Let's look at this sentence. Gripping Jazal's body, Johnny heard Jazal's voice, and when he opened his eye, he was no longer on Naya. So that was his spark initiating moment, which was really cool. But yeah, I mean, Johnny again was kind of representing, truth and justice, and the right way to do things, because he wants everybody to do well and to strive together, and I really think that's cool. And I've really enjoyed watching Johnny kind of change a little bit into more almost like a godfather, almost, or like a very
wise source
old
of knowledge. We have a lot of smart characters, maybe not a lot of wise characters amongst the Planeswalker groups that are trying to save the multiverse, and Johnny definitely serving as a good coach, assistant coach, mentor, kind of, you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball kind of character, and really bringing everybody together, just providing a shoulder to lean on while also being a extremely valuable fighter.
Yeah, this is a character who, like when everybody was like, let's go kill Bolas and Amonkhet, he was like, yo, dog, maybe we don't really have the firepower to take on something like that quite yet. Let's keep moving on and look at a long-term, stretch of things.
Johnny definitely serves what I would describe as being more of a support character, like any League of Legends fans out there. You got your tanks, you got your healers, but you also have your support classes. Johnny's not somebody that we typically see charging to the forefront. He is a powerful character in his own right, but you do tend to see him more in the background, more going, whatever you need, I got you, but I'm not going to be the one leading the charge. And again, I think that's another great take on being a hero. You don't necessarily have to be the leader of the army. You don't necessarily have to be at the front of the pack. You can be just kind of in the back, providing support where it's needed, whether it be emotional, physical, strategic, and he does that very well.
I think he was the character I am most positive, like when they said, would you like to take the oath of the Gatewatch? And he's just like, yes.
Yeah.
Now.
I thought you'd never ask.
I know, right? Like, oh, thanks. Let's do this. Now, here, right over there, Come on. All right. Let's move on here to number 5. I don't have one. It's higher on somebody else's list.
Ooh.
Wow. Same, bro.
Ruben.
We did it. I also have a higher number 5. Look at that.
That's terrific. Aaron, are you going to save us here with a number 5?
I sure will, and I have just the guy to save you with. So this is a shout out to Kamogawa. I'm sure Evan will appreciate this. This is another case of somebody has somebody's loyalties being tested, their loyalties to their code of honor, their loyalties to their realm, to their people, and to the person who has then subverted the power structure is now in charge, and you're kind of against that. This is one of the few characters that can honestly say that they've defeated Nicol Bolas. Like, who can say that? We saw the butt whooping that the Gatewatch got, but this guy certainly didn't experience it. Number 5 is Tetsuo Umezawa. So Tetsuo Umezawa is from the esteemed Umezawa line. You might have heard of cards like Umezawa's Jite. Tetsuo was the imperial champion of the Empire of Madara around the time of the Mirage War. He was raised with a strict honor code, torn between his honor and his master, the Emperor of Madara, Nicol Bolas. So Nicol Bolas wasn't always in charge of Madara, if I'm understanding the story correctly. Eventually, Tetsuo developed a rivalry with a young man named Ramses Overdark, who was being manipulated by Bolas. He was on Bolas' side. Eventually, Bolas takes over the realm, or the plane, or the empire, and Tetsuo, again, just trying to do the right thing. I'm supposed to protect this realm. here's somebody who's massively powerful, him trying to take these steps to be able to do it, and just really kind of biding his time, amassing this power, working like hell. Like if you read this, it's literally like an epic of just all the things that Tetsuo has done to keep Bolus away, fights him, on his own level, finds out what it takes to get rid of him, destroys his source of mana, which is huge, casts a spell called Meteor Hammer, which sounds like something out of Final Fantasy. The spell, the Meteor Hammer, destroys the Imperial Shrine, which destroys the mana foothold, which Bolus needed to stay in Dominaria. And then because Bolus wasn't a planeswalker anymore, Tetsuo killed him. And so that's just a huge epic feat. Like you just see the storyline. This wasn't just one battle. This was years of battles and wars and just trying to do everything he could to stop Bolus. And finally just being able to say that he did that, and that's pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
He also had this really pointy stick that he would break.
Which ended up being broken. But...
Yeah, turns out that's the best stick ever. Was poke people was this little jitte thing, and could do everything and a bag of chips, because apparently he also did everything in a bag of chips, including killing Knuckle Bolus or defeating him or whatever.
If you go to shout out to MTG Gamepedia, I know sometimes our readers ask us where we get a lot of our facts from, but you read the storyline and it's like he's pulling bugs out of Kei Takahashi. He's trying to get rid of Zera Arian. A lot of these obscure legends that you
defeated Lady Orca, if I recall correctly.
I mean, Tetsuo was working, like he was trying super hard.
Grizzled veteran of the Mirage Wars, and you're right. Every single instance is like hero. That's a great one.
Right, and it's weird because like it also mentions sort of like the aftermath, which is once like all the dust settles, everything's in shambles. Like largely the emperor or the empire is fractured all sorts of places because the people who are leading it and in charge aren't there anymore. Everything's just dead and gone. So but they never really sort of picked up those threads, and I can certainly understand why. But it's really interesting to sort of see how they left that.
Yeah.
Let's move here to number 4. Ruben, what's your number 4?
My number 4 is a character that has had far-reaching impact over all of Magic history, from the very beginning of Nicol Bolas's rise for power and hunger for greater power, to Tarkir, to make a pseudo guild pact on Tarkir to make sure that one clan would not have more power than any of the others, to the formation of a triad long before the Gatewatch came together to help conceal the Eldrazi on Zendikar within an eye of his own name. Many situations where Ugin, the spirit dragon, has been the hero of the story.
Ugin, wow.
Ugin.
Yeah.
I love me an Ugin. Ugin itself, being the elder dragon planeswalker, is now a spirit because it died or something. Is that what happened to him?
So, sort of. It was in stasis. The events of Tarkir caused Ugin's body and spirit to be separated from one another, essentially.
Huh.
I'm pretty sure is how it worked. They sort of Ugin was nearly dead to begin with after the Bolas fight alongside Azor, I believe is how it worked. Mm-hmm. And Sarkhan found Ugin's nexus, which was essentially the skeleton remains of Ugin, and brought it back, sort of. And then the time jump happened with Fate Reforged, and there were lots of things happening there where Ugin got rescued, essentially, from the crucible of the spirit dragon, but was able to be brought back, and now is reawakened and reignited. And ready to fight another day. Based on what they have here, he started to rebuild the Eye of Ugin and the Hedron network, and Jace was like, what? Because Jace was like, this whole thing you're doing here could also be the first step in trying to kill them. No. Ignoring Ugin's dire warnings, Jace left the Eye, made his way back to Seagate, and let Gideon know what's up.
Jace, please.
Right? After the newly formed Gatewatch destroyed Ulamog and Kozilek, because remember, they're interstellar titans that can just be zapped to death, Ugin berated them for killing the ancient creatures instead of trapping them, fearing dire consequences for the multiverse. What are they, like the janitors of the multiverse or something? It's like the trash not going to get taken out?
Like the hat and the mop.
Just, cleaning up the universe like you do.
Well, the other thing is that Ugin is the progenitor of Ghostfire. which is the invisible colorless flame that can be used to fight Eldrazi. Most stuff doesn't work against Eldrazi, but the ghost fire can, and so has been used as a tool to be able to fight those planet hopping behemoth annihilators.
Very nice. Aaron, what's your number 4?
So I've covered a couple warrior tropes or hero tropes throughout the show. You know, we have sort of the reluctant hero who runs away from their problems and finally has to sort of confront them. You have the hero who realizes that they can't save everybody. What about the hero who doesn't know when to stop fighting? I really, really appreciate this character storyline. This was another character that we touched base with when we went back to Dominaria. They got one of their own legendary spells in the form of a druidic vow. My number 4 is Kamal. So Kamal is a barbarian from the land of Otaria, Jeska's brother, who made a name for himself as a pit fighter. The Cabal was famous for their pit fights, and Kamal, you know, made his name for himself and made his living doing that. Started to fight the Cabal while he was there, which was led by Braids. You know, sort of known as just constantly fighting. That's what his life was. He ended up being possessed by the Mirari, which made him even more aggressive and unpredictable, even for being a fighter. And he decided to try to take control of all of the tribes under his leadership. And so you have somebody who's known nothing but conflict, who's fighting. He's been amped up to 12 because the Mirari possessed him. And then once the conflicts are over, he kind of decides that I'm done with that. Like, I just want some peace. And so a great storyline. You know, you ended up seeing him taking up with these druids, learning how to meditate, and just finally getting some peace, you know, after, you know, saving people, fighting the good fight, and a really great way to really talk about that trope. You know, when you get so used to that, is that all? You can't just do that. You can't fight for your whole life. And, you know, Kamal kind of coming away from that Mirari possession and saying, I just don't want this to be all that I do. That was really great. And I really related to that.
Look, he raged at the world, at his family, at his life, but mostly he just raged.
And then, you know, you have the flavor text for the Druidic vow, and it says, centuries ago, a barbarian laid his rage to rest. I mean, there's so many, again, that's another storyline that could have just been so over the top of like, he's brutal, he's bloody. Well, what else does he do? We don't know, but he's bloody. No, you look inside yourself and say, I'm done fighting. Like, I did my part. I'm just done. And that's
growing up in the pits can do that to you, but finding a way to turn that unadulterated, open flame rage, burning everything that it touches, to a focused energy source. A really good redemption arc for a character that wasn't really a villain to begin with, just true chaotic, and then became this really good acolyte of the Druids, and then Kamal sort of became a paragon of what it could mean when you do grow up rough and tumble, and you do start out kind of rough and misbegotten, and what you can make of yourself as you grow up. Really, I love that one.
Seeing how it could be turned against you too. You know, the Mirari possessed him. He was already a Spitfire. Well, you know, you give it to that guy and he's even more dangerous. And so asking yourself, are you doing more harm than good? You know, are you the problem? A lot of things.
So my number 4 is a terrific character, much beloved. Many versions of the character are on different cards. Most people have a good idea. Most people who love Magic and have been into Magic for a while have a good idea not only of where this character is now, but where this character came from, which is, you know, part of why it's really neat. Because once upon a time, Urza was working on time travel, you know, and of course nothing ever goes wrong when you mess with that stuff.
Right.
And he couldn't figure out what was going on, but he figured out if he sent silver through time, it went through time. So if he built an entire golem that could talk to him and tell him about things that would happen, or he could instruct it to do things, well, then you would have Karn. As Karn is my number 4, a golem created as a probe by Urza and Baron to enable their time-traveling experiments. He became so much more than that. I mean, he became part of the legacy weapon, and later he created Argentum, a plane of mathematical perfection, which later turned into Mirrodin, because it was ran by an insane Memnarch, which was kind of itself or something, right? What?
Yeah.
Memnarch was the sentient becoming of what the Mirari became.
Yes, it was basically the Mirari became a thing, And that was the insane monster Mimnarch. And then later there's the new Phyrexia, and then new Phyrexia, he then returns to Dominaria, and now he's got like this bomb, and he's like, I'm gonna blow up new Phyrexia, y'all. And they're like, maybe you shouldn't blow up new Phyrexia. He's like, I'm gonna blow up new Phyrexia, y'all. I got this thing, I'm gonna light the fuse, I'm gonna throw it in new Phyrexia and run. Because Karn created Mirrodin. That was what Argentum was originally. It was supposed to be mathematically perfect, of course, because he comes from a world that is very stoic and cold and whatnot. He accidentally killed people, so he had a vow of not hurting anyone else ever again.
Yep.
So
as signaled on the original Tempest pacifism, I believe, is where that one comes out to play. And so when Karn was frozen and couldn't attack, they just sort of picked him up and took him. The goblins that boarded the ship from the Predator. Karn's a good choice. Karn is in this like sort of weirdly like lots of strikes, couple of gutters, right? Like it's debatable whether Karn is has more wins than losses, but I think certainly overall, definitely a hero of the story.
Sort of kind of reminds me of Data a little bit. You mentioned kind of the Data, the sort of automaton way of looking at things, and somebody really having to deal with what it means to never pick up a sword. I believe Karn's always been a pacifist. And so again, you think of heroes, you think of conflict, you think of fighting, and Karn really struggling with that. Somebody who ultimately wants to do good, maybe doesn't even know what good is. How do you deal with that? Do you let them take you over? Really great lessons there.
As I recall, and I'm trying to find it in this story here, but I can't. Something like they kind of fooled him into accidentally into killing people.
Accidentally killing something,
right.
Which is the original Karn Silver Golem. Whenever it is blocked or becomes blocked, becomes an 08, so it can't kill things.
Yeah,
right.
And I think the one time it did, it kind of it created a crisis for Karn. Didn't he accidentally kill a goblin?
He accidentally killed a goblin, and that's sort of why he started freezing up in that kind of situation.
Yeah.
Right. There you go. So, but Karn in and of itself,
putting together the legacy weapon, being a hugely influential, another source of wisdom for these newfangled planeswalkers. Lots of great things that Karn has done.
Yeah. And also nice to get a fantastic new version in Scion of Urza, which was great.
Yeah.
I really think they hinged a lot of what Dominaria being a history set, and something that remember the old school stuff, and having Karn being front and center, and this is what Magic was about back in the day and can still be about. That's awesome, and I love Karn. Let's move on here to number 3. Ruben, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is, it's the focus right now. It's what everybody talks about. It's the center story arc, from Zendikar to Innistrad to Ravnica to Kaladesh. We chase these folks all over the world. My number 3 is the Gatewatch all together.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Look at you breaking the rules.
I know, right?
Hey, some of these people are heroes on their own, like Gideon.
I love it.
And Chandra, but together it's Gideon, Jace, Chandra, Ajani, and Teferi are the current members, with former members being Liliana and Nissa. And then there are a couple of honorary non-Planeswalker members, such as Lavinia and Ravnica. But they've done so much good over time, coming together to take down Ob Nixilis on Zendikar, solving the riddle of the moon with the help of Tamio on Innistrad, not once but twice traveling to Ravnica to be able to sort out problems there, and of course the most recent Dominaria story arc where they got rid of Belzenlock and took up the Black Blade. Lots of fascinating, interesting things that we are coming to a head after their defeat on Amonkhet, after they lost the battle of Amonkhet. Coming to a head probably in the war for the Spark.
Yes, this is sort of Magic's answer to the Avengers, and one of the things we saw when it came to the Oath specifically is why these people were choosing to work together. You had Chandra's Oath, which was more about freedom, where it's like, as long as I can be me, as long as people can be themselves, I will keep watch, and then you have, Gideon's reason for it, and then, most memorably, you have Liliana's, where it's like, I guess I'll take an oath, So I like that this wasn't just a perfect cast. It wasn't always a family, and there were tensions there. And, again, redefining what it means to be heroes. Not everybody there really cared. Not maybe cared's the wrong word, but they just, again, Chandra was like, I'm really just here for freedom, and these people are being oppressed, so I will go ahead and save them. She really didn't look at it as, I'm going to do a good deed today. She's, they fight for different reasons. And again, I think it was a really neat take on how to define heroism and giving somebody a hero they could relate to. I can't relate to Gideon, but I can certainly relate to Liliana.
Right.
And that feeling of, I'm stronger with these people. I may not necessarily care for them, but we are stronger together. So, all right, I guess I'll kick with you guys. And so, you really need to see yourself in a cast. And this, for what, the Gatewatch has a lot of criticism around it, but say what you will, but there was something for everybody in the Gatewatch.
At the sort of main location for CoolStuffInc.com, there's a big old game store. And on the wall, they had the oaths. Like, they had sent out large versions of the oath cards, So
Cool.
so we had framed them, we put them up on the wall. And so we had a Gideon and Jace and a Johnny and so on and so forth. And they're all like, 2 foot by 3 foot, whatever. And so you're looking at these and they're all 2 foot by 3 foot. And then there's one 3 foot by 3 foot at the end. And it just has the card Oath of Teferi in it. So you got these giant, the card. Because they didn't actually send an Oath of Teferi in the oversized version. And so they decided to put I just thought it was absolutely hilarious, and it cracked me up every time I saw it. But the Gatewatch in of itself, the Justice League, if you will, we needed a group of superheroes. We needed a group of planeswalkers, and we need something to bind them together. So you got your big bads, you got your good goods, and together they're out there to kick Nicol Bolas's butt. And I guess we'll see what happens in War of the Spark. Aaron, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is a character that you could argue it was always their destiny to sort of be a hero. That's another thing about heroism is sometimes you fall into it, sometimes you're destined for it, and sometimes you choose it. And this is a character that may not have done as much as other characters, but this character could have easily been what they call a MacGuffin, where you have this character, you got to go find this character. Okay, you find them, and then they could be utterly useless. But this is a character that lured you into sort of the Tempest Weatherlight storyline and ultimately gave you a reason to keep following along with it. My number 3 is Captain Cisse. You better Cisse that walk. So Captain Cisse was actually part of Urza's bloodline project long before her birth. The project was designed to make sure somebody from Dominaria would be born that could protect the legacy, which was considered the ultimate weapon against Phyrexia. So it's my understanding that she didn't necessarily know that she was. She knew parts of the tale and legends surrounding it. And then eventually she clued into it and she started gathering the legacy. Cisse being missing was sort of the main plot hook for the Weatherlight. Gerard was assigned to kind of find her. And then once you found her, you discovered that she really did have a greater role in things and that she was an interesting character and somebody that you cared about her and you wanted to see what happened with her. And very much a captain to the core. It's my understanding that once the storyline was kind of over with, she didn't really have a boat no mo. And so, what was that about? And so just a really great character. We saw Shauna being one of Cisse's descendants in Dominaria, and just a really beloved character, somebody that, the crew was very loyal to. You would be loyal to her as well. And eventually she did get a new ship. She got a ship called the Victory. And so somebody deserving of a happy ending and one of the few characters who got one.
I mean,
absolutely.
There's hardly to get a better, sign that you won than they gave you a ship and they called it Victory.
Yeah.
But this is one where they could have, this could have been a very uninteresting character. It could have been like, well, we found Cisse, y'all can go home now. But no, you really cared about her. You understood why the people wanted to find her. You wanted to follow her adventures. Giving a character like that such a storyline was good.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Just and also central on the card, Coalition Victory.
Yeah.
So very, very good choice.
That's great. All right. So let's move on here to number 3 for me. Well, look, I was talking about Karn, right? And Karn is sweet, and Karn is awesome, and Karn is terrific. And we all love Karn, don't we all love Karn? Yeah. But there was a point where Karn got corrupted by the Phyrexian oil. It started to seep out of his heart and stuff and had to get, and then he kind of sort of descended into Mirrodin's core, and then his core was kind of corrupted, and then it was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? How are we going to save Karn? Because Karn created this place, let's make sure that Karn lives through it. And so it took someone to give up their spark and essentially their life to save Karn.
Ooh.
Yep.
And that was Venser.
Yep.
So Venser is my number 3. So essentially, Karn, after he did that, he mourned the loss released from Phyrexian tyranny and mourned the loss of his friend before returning to battle the Phyrexians, stating he has a lot of work ahead of him. So even though, his friend gave his life, he knew that he was like, all right, we gotta keep going. Because Venser was awesome, and Venser was really cool throughout all of the timelines, whether it's Time Spiral and whatnot. Had a bunch of character cards there, which was great, and had a Planeswalker card, of course, later in Scars of Mirrodin, which was fantastic. And yeah, essentially the mending more or less just changed what Venser was and who he was and what he was about.
Absolutely. Yeah. This was my number 5.
Nice.
Absolutely a hero worthy of mentioning, specifically for the mending, which of course was a huge deal. And set in motion all of, even still, our current story arc of Nicol Bolas trying to reclaim his old power after the mending brought planeswalkers from godlike potential to merely uber powerful demigod-like potential.
Right.
Being able to, the whole storyline of looking for Karn and all of that was, it's a tragic hero. We haven't had a ton of tragic heroes. We've had a couple of cult heroes, we've had a couple of traditional heroes, we've had a couple of ascending heroes, but tragic heroes are fewer and further between, and Venser certainly is one of them.
Yeah, Venser was super cool. All right, so let's move on here to number 2. I share a number 2.
Hi.
Wow.
Is it Aaron? Is it you?
Yeah, and I believe so.
That's pretty dope. Why don't you tell the world who we chose for number 2?
So my number 2 and my number 1 were pretty firmly locked in when we started this list. This is a character that was at the forefront of the epic storyline, beginning with Weatherlight and going all the way through Apocalypse. This was the character, the sort of swashbuckling character that, we all rooted for, and was sort of the one that we put ourselves, in their shoes as everything was going on, and just lived a very epic life, very adventurous character. Again, just a really long resume. If you go through his Gamepedia bio, I mean, the man just did so much. Like, he wasn't lazy at all, and got a really, really nice send-off in that he is ultimately a part of Karn now, which I can't imagine Karn would just let anybody come live in him. So that's a pretty big deal. Our number 2 is Gerard Capuchin.
Yeah. His card sucks. Like, it's real garbage. Like, it's hot, nasty garbage. And they didn't know what to do with him when they finally made a card version of him. And so they're just like, well, let's just make it suck then. And okay, that's fine. I mean, this was the final product of Urza's Bloodline project. His family line was manipulated by Urza in order to create a perfect human who could stand against the Phyrexians. That's a little weird. Not going to lie. Maybe even 2019, that's even a little weirder than what it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's fine. Whatever. They're in the world of Gattaca, turns out, in Dominaria.
Right. Turns out he's Simic.
Yeah. It's sort of like how the story of Doomsday, which is the scientist sent off this organism to go fight, and he would scrape off everything after it got destroyed until he sent it out, and it was so strong and so crazy nobody could stop it, and that was Doomsday.
That's how the Predator works too, right? Like, they just take over planets and adopt whatever the best thing from that planet is. Anyway, that's not how Gerard works, apparently.
But I mean, Gerard, just with the sweeping storyline, he was like Hondo, you have the love line with Hannah and how that all went down. And then just one of my favorite moments was with him is the flavor text where I think it's Vindicate, where he just says, like, I think it's like, don't weep for me or something like that. I can't seem to find it.
He says, don't mourn for me. This is my destiny.
Yes. I mean, just...
It was his destiny. Like, he knew this was what he was going to have to do, was to give up his life in order to save the world, essentially. This was the Luke Skywalker just that much further. This, like, and Morrow's been very clear about, like, this was the hero's journey, and we picked the hero, and here's all the different ways we did it. We went through the whole formula throughout all these sets, and it culminated into the ultimate sacrifice using the legacy weapon and all that good stuff. So it was really terrific, and to me, that's one of the biggest heroes and the number 1 hero I think of, other than my number 1, which we'll get to here in just a minute.
Absolutely, great choice.
All right, but Ruben, what's your number 2?
Yeah, I guess if I cheated with the Gatewatch, then you guys are going to be thinking that I cheated with my number 2. I didn't want to just pick Sisay. I didn't want to just pick Gerard.
You're picking the crew.
I'm picking the crew of the Skyship Overlight.
Jesus.
They're all heroes, and I can pick the boat itself as well for what it represents and what it brings people together. But the current crew, of course, being Joyra and Shauna Sisay and the Raph Capuchin and obviously Slimefoot as well. But the previous crew, most notably Gerard and Captain Sisei, but also Hana, Hongarth, who is the Taltrum hero, let's not forget, Orem, who found the cure for the Phyrexian plague, and during various points during the storyline, specifically during the Weatherlight saga and the story arc, but also further on through to the Mercadian Masks block, which was all a story essentially of the Weatherlight's travels through Mercadia, back to Wrath, back to Dominaria, with characters like Urtai and Miri and Krovax and Karn and Rofellos and Squee and all of those various characters, just being a central character in and of itself. I think that it's easy to lump to say that the crew of the Weatherlight are individually heroes, but the whole is more than the sum of its parts. And I think that the whole story and being able to say to identify with different points of view of the whole crew certainly struck true to me. It was my first love was the whole crew, not necessarily just Gerard or just Captain Sisei.
Okay. Well, let's talk about breaking rules.
I have to say, I don't disagree with you, though. You know, that is one of my favorite casts. You know, I started playing Magic right around the time that storyline kicked off. And, you know, there wasn't a single character that I didn't love. I loved Tongarth and Squee and Miri and Krovax and Selenia. And I read those books over and over and over again. I didn't necessarily know what the cards did. I didn't really know anything like that. But I followed these characters and would have followed those characters to Death's Door. And so a lot of memories there, a lot of resonance for me. And I don't disagree with you. It is hard to choose just one.
Right, and I was the exact opposite. I didn't really give a crap about the story. I was just like, can the cards not suck? Can the cards not suck?
Aww.
And the cards kept sucking, and that made me sad. It's fine, because I was a Spike. I just want to play tournament Magic stuff. It's cool. But we're going to go over to our number one, and we have the Justice League and the whole Weatherlight crew being thrown in some stuff. I'm going to come at you at a different angle, all right?
Hell no.
I'm going to come at you with my number one hero of Magic the Gathering. My number one hero of Magic the Gathering is Mark Rosewater, because Mark Rosewater has done more for Magic in a heroic sense than any other person or really character. Deal with it. Because, listen, y'all, I gotta note that Rosewater has become a force of not only just making mistakes, right, and making some large mistakes, but being able to champion things like double face cards, being able to champion things like split cards, being able to really push the boundaries as to what a card can do, the designs of them, the land continues to burn, y'all. Like all of those things that we more or less may take for granted are there because Mark Rosewater's there. And that's my number one.
You come into my house and make fun of my dishes when your number one is Mark Rosewater. Listen, I don't dispute that Mark Rosewater has done a lot for Magic the Gathering. He's a hero who of all heroes, but if you have him on the list, why don't you have Eric Lauer or Brian David Marshall or any number of... I can't do the voice anymore.
Okay.
But
I mean, you're not wrong.
Again, you're not wrong.
You get
there's like a gray area between correct and incorrect, I think, and we both have fallen into it.
We have our faults. That's fine. But I'll take my hero.
I like the gall. I like the cut of your jib.
I saw what you did there.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, Morrow is, when you look at just sort of the course of the game, when you look at his ability to keep everybody interested, you know, dare I say this, he's almost like kind of the Willy Wonka of Magic, of that in a good way, of just his ability to still be doing this for as long as he has and still be excited by things, to not become jaded by things. He doesn't have he's not afraid of trying new things. You know, there's so many cards that we've seen come out, you know, in the last few years since we've been doing the show. We've said we would rather they take risks than not take risks. And so, you know, to keep people interested the way that he has, to remain as approachable as he is. He's also the creator of Dredge. A lot of people like to blame that on Richard Garfield. Oh no, girl, that's Morrow. Bow
Personal
down.
Hero.
Absolutely. And so, and just has this aura about him where there's not much to him. You know, he's a little dude, but, you know, very Gaddock Teague in that sense. If you meet somebody and you're like, there's not much there, but you wouldn't know it by meeting him because the force of his personality is just so overwhelming.
That man does work. I mean, between the Tales from the Pit, he's been doing for years and years and years now. He does those bracket things now. We've gotten to the point where he's just like doing words. Like, do you like fire or light? And I'm like, what? Right. I
we'll
guess
get there someday on this show.
Yeah, eventually we're one of the top 10s of the top 10s, but you know, eventually.
But the fact that he has his own cottage industry of Morrow-themed memes or Morrow-themed I don't know what to call them, but between the Tales from the Pit, the Blogatog, the Drive to Work podcast, the brackets, the
Making Magic article that he's been writing for over 10 years, 15, I think.
The Storm Scale, for example. Like all of the things that he's done for Magic and continues to do for Magic. Yeah, I mean, personal hero of mine as well.
Absolutely. So, Ruben, close this out here. What is your... I'm sorry, I'm not closing this out here. Aaron, you go ahead. What is your number one?
You were right the first time.
You were right the first time because we share a number one, Mr. Esmond Irwin. Do you have anything missing from your top 10?
I do, and I was hoping that you were going to just run in there and save it.
Good.
That was why.
We share a hero. We were holding out for this hero.
We really were. It is time. I mean, you know, time is on our side. Our number one is Teferi. So Teferi, when you look back at just his storyline, you know, he encompasses so many hero tropes, you know, the idea of being sort of damaged, you know, doing such a colossal thing, like making a city go away, and having this immense power. With great power comes great responsibility. Teferi being able to alter time, to play with time. You know, we have powerful heroes that we've covered on this show. You know, we have physically strong heroes, we have druid heroes, we have vampire heroes, but to do something like play with time is such a dangerous thing. And, you know, you have somebody who started off as kind of this prankster, kind of this rebel, really figuring out what they can do, but not really quite sure how to wield it, and having to deal with that responsibility of, you know, there's a flavor text of his that I remember where it's like, careless like a child with fire, so was I with time, and having to, you know, acknowledge that maybe you had made a mistake like that. And what do? You know, do you keep fighting at that point? You know, Teferi wanting to kind of shield himself, wanting to not fight anymore because he's afraid he's going to hurt people. Just so much pathos there and so much depth. And to see him come back, kind of a reluctant hero still of, things really aren't good right now, but I'm kind of bad news. What do I do? And following along with that journey on top of being a powerful card in so many formats. I mean, to me, it was just a no-brainer.
Well, what you're saying is that if they have a hero in the name of their card, they get to make it on the list. Got it.
The hero of Dominaria, the fact that card was our card of the year last year and has the word hero right in the name, that certainly factors into the decision. So many points into Teferi's story proved himself that he is the hero that Magic needs and deserves. And lots of hard choices, lots of big consequences to the decisions. He can never go home again. That's huge amongst other things. But let us not forget the biggest achievement of Teferi as a hero, being a positive father figure to his daughter.
There you go.
After all of the things that he's accomplished, after all of the massive powers, he could have just become a jerk. He could have become aloof. He could have run away from his problems, as so many heroes can do. He remains on Dominaria, remains trying to bring Zalfir back and raises a family.
Very nice. This was my number 5, of course, because Teferi is just one of the best known, most beloved, I think is a way to put.
Absolutely.
For me, again, I was just like, I feel like Karn is more impacting.
You do your bald brother that way?
Venser killed himself to save another hero, which I think was great.
Gerard, and Teferi gave up his spark,
right,
in order to help protect.
Yeah, and then was later given it back, which was really sweet. Just like, oh, by the way, this amulet has your spark in it. Like, oh, cool. But yeah, I mean, the fact that
cool.
Oh, cool. Thank God, that's all fantastic.
That's like a handing the shield back to Captain America kind of moment. Like, welcome back, Teferi. We've missed you. My favorite Teferi cards are, there's a card that references Teferi being told about in Afari Tales, which is on a bunch of flavor texts from Mirage, but the fact that Teferi is in the book not just taking part in the events of Mirage, but already a legendary figure by the time Magic's like third expansion came out.
Jeez.
Is absolutely spectacular. And of course, you have to go back to Urza's saga and take a look at Disruptive Student, with Teferi as a little kid being a bit of a prankster, and really fitting flavor text there as well, if you happen to have that one up, Evan.
That's really cool. Yeah, there's Teferi Timebender, where he had a Planeswalker deck version of himself, as well as Temporal Archmage when he showed up in the Commander deck. Teferi's been around a little bit, around the block, and is certainly a fine choice for number 1.
I definitely like the quote of, Teferi is a problem student, always late for class, no appreciation for constructive use of time.
Wow. Well, look, that was our top 10 heroes. You will see them on the screen right now for your review. Take a look at my list, Aaron's list, Ruben's top 10, and we want to hear from you about what card we did not talk about, or what hero, rather, we did not talk about, and we'll select our favorite to win a $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com. But before we go, I want to thank my co-hosts. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ruben.
Evan, Aaron, you're my heroes.
Oh, geez.
And we go to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsors, CardHoarder.com and Cardimajigs.com, presenting Cuba Majigs. My co-hosts, Aaron Campbell and Ruben Bressler, you guys for watching or listening, and hope you support us at patreon.com/magicmics. Follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe, do everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at twitch.tv at Magic Mics, on Twitter at Magic Mics Cast, our Magic Mics subreddit, and like the Magic Mics page on Facebook. Talk to us privately at magicmicspodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at magicmicspodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes and Spotify, or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.